Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Welcome, everybody. We have Ishan, Girdhar. You probably correct me, Fade. I think I just butchered it again. We're going to go over security, third-party vendor risk, whatever else the conversation brings up. Here he is.
Hey, Josh, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me today.
Absolute pleasure and honor. So tell me about yourself, where you're at, and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, based out of DC. Just right now, I've been running a company called Priva. We're a software company focused on third-party risk management. So we've been around for about 5.5 years, just having fun, growing. Normal startup, bumps and bruises along the way. But every day is a success as well. And so those are the ones that kind of keep me going.
I would say, statistically speaking, most startups don't make it past the first year. So you're long past the boring part. It's just now getting the growth, huh?
Yeah. Now it's about putting in the process, getting the right people, and trusting employees to do the right thing. I can't handle and manage everything anymore. It's hard.
It's too big.
Yeah, it's like, I'm letting go of my baby for the first time, and it's
that's hard to do.
It is really hard to do. But if you hire right, then you can sleep at night. I still haven't slept at night, but I feel like I got the right people in place to let that happen.
There's probably too much caffeine earlier in the day.
Yeah, it's pretty much all day, every day. So, but yeah, no, I'm now at the point where I officially take one day of the weekend completely off, which is a win.
So you just completely turn off your phone and everything, and just what is it?
That's crazy talk.
I want to say that's crazy talk, Josh. You're not allowed to do that.
No, but I'm responding to those emails sitting at the pool.
Okay, fair enough. So then tell us a little more about your model. You were telling me before I hit the record button about third-party risk and vendors and data, but I'm really curious, how did you figure out the software to identify these risks?
So kind of going back 5 years and how the company actually started, I was a vendor that was getting access to the network of a hospital. So I actually had to go through the security review process, which we're trying to fix today. So I was on the other side. And at the end of the day, we were getting these crazy long Excel spreadsheets that were tell us and answer 50 to 200 questions around cybersecurity. And so when we looked at it, our mindset was just flip an Excel sheet to some sort of like question and answer platform. And when we broke it down and just simplified it to that level of granularity, it made things easy. And it's funny you say that, right? Like that first year is just building something simple. Most times people don't buy it. We're fortunate enough people actually bought it. And so you kind of fake it till you make it. And that's kind of what we did. We built a great sort of minimum viable product that, was good enough to make people felt like they were getting value, wrapped around a good team that faked it and kind of helped make sure they didn't realize that there were certain buttons that didn't work, certain functionality that wasn't perfect. But I have an amazing partner and a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and he basically fixed it all, and he built something that allowed us to sell and scale and grow, and we haven't had to rebuild it. And I just get to be the face of it, I guess.
That's awesome. That's like the goal for most entrepreneurs is once you get past that first year or 2 years, like once it's there, smooth sailing, just get your proper team. Like you go to the beach, still answer your phones, but
yeah, it's tough though. I mean, I'm telling you, there's never a dull moment. when I first got into this, I was talking to one of my partners who's a pretty successful entrepreneur, and, and I said, what can I expect? He says, every day and every moment from now till the end, you're going to wake up and you're going to say, we're a day away from failure and we're a day away from success. And every morning when you wake up, you have no idea which way the wind's going to blow. And hopefully there's more days to the success side than the failure side. But and I'm more fortunate. We've had some successes and some good wins and some great clients. And, we're still figuring it out, though.
Anything in life, though, is always a learning process, especially in your field of work. It's always changing. Every day is new problems, and you don't even know it yet until maybe a month later when it's too late.
Yeah, without a doubt. And how do you react to them, right?
Right.
You can't fix them. If you strive for perfection in a startup, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no such thing. At the end of the day, and I was talking to one of my partners last night, those first 2-3 years, I was the commercial team, right? They're buying me. They're buying that they can trust me and that we're going to put and continue to deliver something. But, it's treating your clients like partners, not just somebody that's paying the bills. It's why we don't lose clients, is because they know if there's something wrong, we're going to try our best to fix it. And if we can't, it's probably not a fixable problem. And I think that's something that's an important lesson that we've figured out is you can't solve the world.
Right.
But if you try, you can kind of keep the things going.
Right. My original mentor when it came to business, he essentially said, if you're striving for perfection, you already failed. He's like, but if you try and you give it your all, he's like, humans intrinsically understand. He's like, you could fail, fall in the mud, walk in with a dirty suit. As long as you showed up, they'll ignore the smell. They're like, he tried, he's here, we're going to give him a chance, kind of thing.
Look, the 80-20 rule is a cliche for a reason.
Right.
People are happy with 80% because they know that 20% is really, really hard. And they probably only get to 80, 85 in their own life, in their own job. And as long as you're pretty open about it, I think you got a good chance. Yeah.
And that's when I've picked up talking to guys like you and different ones on the show. It's just, as long as you communicate, you don't have to be the jerk with the whip saying faster, I want you to go faster kind of thing. As long as you say, hey, you're like, I actually don't know what the hell is going on. Do any of you know what's going on? Because I can't fix it.
Yeah, look, I still don't know what my company does. You asked me before what we do. I still don't know, to be honest with you. I had, when I started the company, I actually had no background in cybersecurity, risk management, software.
Really?
I was in finance. I was in investment banking.
Really?
Yeah. So it's been a learning curve for me. It passes you by real quick, because especially in cybersecurity, I mean, what happens today is completely different tomorrow. And, so just trying to keep up with the Joneses isn't easy.
That right there is a full-time job in and of itself.
Exactly.
So then it just came to my mind because I didn't know about the investment banker. So why did you go from that relatively good paying job to a startup in something you don't really have experience in?
Happiness.
Really? I've actually heard that a lot.
Yeah. Work. It's funny. I kind of say go from working 80 to 100 hours a week to going to work 100 hours to 120 hours a week brings happiness.
You're doing what you love, though.
At the end of the day, right, you want to kind of control your own destiny and you want to control your own happiness. It's not easy. I wouldn't necessarily say I've been happy for 5 years, but
it's ups and downs.
Level, it's a different level of enjoyment. Being able to bring on a team, it's a challenge. Mentoring your team members. I'm always learning. I didn't know what deferred revenue liabilities were a year ago, right? I probably should have as a banker, but hey, 80-20 rule there too. So just, having fun about it. And I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday who runs a pretty decent sized 80-person family business. And he even said, I'm just not having that much fun anymore right now. It's hard. And I think COVID's made it even more difficult.
Oh, yeah.
People don't leave their house. I'm lucky. I'm sitting in an office. People don't leave their house from Monday through Friday. So you're trying to find a balance to do things creatively, even during COVID. Early on, we were doing 4 p.m. walk-in talks. So I made everybody get out of their house, go for a walk during the summer, and we would have a conference call with the entire team. And there was no work. There was no agenda.
Just do something other than be in your house.
Get out from your desk and walk outside.
That's pretty cool.
We did a Secret Santa in May of last year.
Okay.
Everybody picked a name out of a hat and sent everybody a $25 gift. So just kind of get creative, right? You get to do fun things like those and see things, see the team kind of grow also and get into their run.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, in the initial part of the pandemic, did you go remote too?
We did. I mean, we've always been pretty remote.
Okay.
Half the team would come in half the week. The other half, they were working remote. So frankly, I was probably the only one that actually had to adapt because I actually come into the office 5 days a week. So it wasn't a terrible transition, but clients had greater requirements. Employees were dealing with the change. We didn't know what business looked like. We didn't know if we were getting new clients. We didn't know if we were going to lose all of our clients. Budgets were tough. So those unknowns were difficult, but we ended up, we actually doubled in size during the pandemic, which is pretty cool.
That was going to be my next question, especially with everyone being home, realizing cybersecurity is a huge problem with all this. I was going to say, did it pick up for you?
It did. It picked up pretty big. March through November, we weren't sure. I'd say we had more first meetings with prospective clients than we ever have in that period of time, but nobody was signing a contract because nobody had money. But then come November, when things started to kind of
get clearer,
get a little visibility, we sort of saw like a vaccine in the in the future. Budgets were starting to come up. That's when we started having a really good success kind of last December and kind of seeing that continue through this year.
That's good. So then what is the specific tools you offer? I was telling you before, I'm like, I looked at it, but I'm like, some of this, I'm like, man, he's going to have to explain it from like your internal to vendor risk, your automation, the CMMC. So tell us.
The good part is that I'd say it's a good and a bad thing that we kind of help. We have the ability to help companies pretty much of any size, in any industry, pretty much anywhere in the world.
That's awesome.
It sounds awesome, right? But if you try to go win every company of every size, of every industry, anywhere in the world, you're not going to get any of them because it's too big and it's too diversified. So we basically help companies. Our primary markets are the legal industry, financial services, and healthcare. And then a little bit secondary is sort of IT companies. So more and more companies are using vendors to help them just drive efficiency. Like COVID, obviously, like that kind of kicked it up, right? All of a sudden, everybody's working from home. So we had to now move and give them tools to collaborate. Like Slack was there, but how many people use Slack when they could just walk over to somebody's desk? Zoom, obviously, we saw so crazy. So these companies and these products all of a sudden have access to more data about our employees, about our clients, about our technology. So our software just said, okay, well, how can we make people's jobs easier and more efficient? Because that's at the end of the day, especially in cybersecurity, everybody's running at about 125% capacity because there's not enough people in cybersecurity. So how do you then tell somebody, oh, by the way, now you have to do this? And so we took a perspective. We can help them buy our product, tell them we're going to bring a resource to help you do it. And we can help you kind of get it implemented really quickly. And it doesn't break the bank. Then I think we got a good product and a good chance. And that's kind of the perspective we had last year was tell people that we're going to be an extension of their team. They're not just buying this product. We train them and then they're on their own. We want to be part of their team.
So does that go into using VPNs to two-factor authentication and all that? Yeah, training them up on that?
Exactly. Yeah, all of that. So really, what we do is we don't help them with VPNs and two-factor internally. We actually go and say, hey, all these other companies that have access to your data, do they have a VPN? Do they have two-factor turned on? Do they have a password policy? So making sure that everybody you are sending your data to is secure, is doing the right things from a cybersecurity perspective, right? So that they're not vulnerable to a breach. That's the key.
So then, yeah, it's one of those, when I was looking over your stuff, I'm like, this is a spiderweb effect. It's like affiliate marketing. If one breaks farther out, it's not a problem. But if it's at the core of what you're doing, all hell could break loose. And then, so what do you do from there?
Yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, so kind of like the cliche, like you're only good as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. Some of our clients have, right? Like our client has a lot of data. Then they have 250 other third-party vendors that have access to all that same data. If any one of them, right? If any one of those 250 get hacked, it's as good as somebody breaking into your own four walls. And so, trying to minimize that risk. You're never going to be risk-free,
right?
But trying to just sort of reduce it. Know where the skeletons in the closet are, and then work with those parties to figure out how to sort of take care of it.
So how would you go about telling one of your clients, oh, you have X amount of vendors, but more than likely half of them don't have the security? Like, how do you coach up and teach your clients to be like, hey, I need you to step up your game kind of thing?
Yeah, delicately, right? Because it is a balance. You got to just you got to tell them why it's important, bring some context. At the end of the day, right? The goal here is for everybody is to just kind of create and sort of minimize risk. And like people's jobs are on the line, people's data's on the line. So I don't think there's too much coaching that's required, especially with our clients, right? Especially in those industries, legal, financial services, healthcare. Mm-hmm. They know they have crazy, crazy sensitive data. And they know that they're not, they know there's vulnerabilities in their network. And so the school districts are the ones that we have a little bit more of a challenge. They have a lot of data. They have a lot of student information, parent information, employee information. Telling them that we've seen this before. And I think now, like you and I were talking about SolarWinds, newspapers do our job for us half the time, right? These things are in the newspaper and now you see it across the board. I think we're past the level of telling them why it's important. Now it's what's the best way to put this in place.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's just reference whatever area. Be like, just check this article out this day. Like you'll see the SolarWinds hacker. What is that other one the guy was talking about? It was like an Aurora something.
There was a Kaseya one recently. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. So recently we had SolarWinds, then we had Microsoft had one. Okay. And the Kaseya one not too long ago. So I'm not sure which one he was talking about.
It was because me and him were chatting like 2 weeks after the SolarWinds hack. That's where I was like, oh, that's coincidence. What do you think of this kind of thing? And then he's like, oh yeah, there's another one, but he's like, the news aren't talking about it. He's like, and it's a bit of a problem. He's like, it's just as bad solar winds. I'm like, well, do tell, kind of thing. But yeah, it might have been the Kaseya.
Advocate Aurora.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a cannabis company. So they actually they had a lot of personal identifiable information that was
a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe that was it. Yeah, I just remember Aurora. I'm like, I don't remember what part he said it.
That's a great example where that's a direct consumer business, where ours are mostly enterprises. So we're going after large companies. So we have companies from Fortune 500s to 50-person firms. That's an interesting breach, right? And the cannabis side of it starting to play into healthcare and HIPAA rules, and I think that industry is evolving so fast that they're still trying to put in all the regulations,
and it's changing as fast as they do it.
Right? It's like people are kind of getting ahead of it, and like hackers are smart, and they know that these people. They know companies like cannabis companies or fast-growing startups. Security is not the number one thing they're thinking about. Kind of going back, right? In the first 2 years, you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to build a product. You're trying to generate revenue, and you compromise security. And so somebody like this may, if that's the company, they may have gotten sort of hacked before.
Yeah, especially with the cannabis places, they. At least in California, I don't know about other places where it's legal. You have to give them your driver's license, your address, something else. This one place my buddy went to, they asked for a social too, and I'm like, dude, if this gets raided, you're screwed. They have everything, kind of thing.
That's bizarre that they would need a social security number.
I'm like, yeah, driver's license is good enough. I mean, it's just as sensitive.
Yeah.
But yeah. I know he was like, they're cheap though. I'm like, well, you're paying for something else.
Yeah, you're getting what you pay for. They're selling your info.
Well, yeah, it was just one of those. I've always thought about that because it was just one of those. I'm like, dude, unless it's your line of work, like a trucker, where you just have to give out your driver's license, whether you like it or not, there's no reason to ask for all that personal info. And it's truly, data is the new gold, whether we like it or not. Because you can do a lot with it.
Yeah. You can do so much with it. And it's going to be interesting to see. It's the crackdown started. You're seeing it. I mean, every state, I think that last time I did a talk a couple of weeks ago, I think there's like 30 to 35 states that all have their own privacy laws at some stage in the process.
Right.
It's going to be challenging because you have all these companies who operate in all 50 states, and they're going to have to track where each person is. And if I go from Virginia to Maryland, that changes the rule. And so it's going to be a crazy, really difficult problem. And I know that companies are pretty scared on how to manage it. Because you kind of have to make a blanket statement of saying our control is going to be the worst state ever and apply that everywhere. And I think California is probably going to be the worst one.
You think so?
They're generally the most conservative, what you can do with their information. So, but whatever state comes out with the most strict rule is going to set the bar that everybody's going to have to sort of maintain. And at that point, you're going to see companies not be able to share your data anymore. I think you're going to see more companies, social media companies, go to a pay model. If that goes, yep. Twitter's trying
to integrate it now. Yeah.
Right. And would I pay? Yeah, I think I would pay. I would pay a couple bucks to Twitter if I knew that they just weren't personalizing ads for me and listening to this podcast be recorded. And
yeah, that's actually one of those funny things. Me and my parents over the weekend went to go get some food, and they were talking to me. They're like, "Oh yeah, like this." I told them like because I told you earlier, I work night shift. I said, yeah, I see a lot of Bugattis, Aston Martins, kind of like where I'm at. There's a lot of wealthy people. My mom's like, there's no Aston Martins here. She's like, what? Literally, we pull next to an Aston Martin. I'm like, see, Mom, I told you they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
But then the funny part is she started getting ads for that too the next day. That's where I jokingly told him, like, Apple's listening, whether you like it or not.
It's terrifying. It is terrifying, but it is, what's the right answer?
Yeah, it's just, it's a delicate dance. There is no right or wrong to this. So as you're, for something like a situation like that, not maybe your company would offer it, but what are some things you would recommend for clients to be like, hey, you might not want to talk about that near your phone kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest, I wrote an article about it when the pandemic came out and everybody worked from home. The article was turn off your Alexa. Mm-hmm. Because if you're doing business at home, Amazon's listening. And they're clear about it, right? It's not, right. It wasn't hidden. So if you were doing something that all of a sudden, kind of bring it back to our company, that was now a third party. You're sitting at home and you're talking about some sort of client, and Amazon knows that they're a client. So go into your phone, check your privacy settings, turn them off if you don't want it. I don't use Siri. I have it off, so I probably haven't checked all the right buttons off, but
they keep adding new ones every day too.
Yeah. And then they're updating their privacy policy and they're, talking about who they, so just stay on top of it, figure out what you want. You can't solve the problem. It's too intertwined at this point, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. That's why we hire guys like you to cover the 80% of the stuff we can't get to.
Yeah.
So then you mentioned it earlier, like schools being the worst. What is the air quote roughest client you walked into and be like, my God, they are screwed if they don't have us kind of thing?
I would probably point to the education industry.
Okay.
You have so much. Everybody has sensitive information, but you're talking about children, parents, credit card, talking about social, driver's license, credit card. It's like, it is truly, you have employee information, right? It's the kind of the trifecta of information. And every piece of every stakeholder, employee, student, and parent, you have every piece of sensitive information.
And then
sorry, can you go ahead?
I'll say, but they're just the hardest one to also, other than with Corona, they were the hardest to convince too.
They're the hardest ones that can, it's funny. They're not the hardest, the ones that convince. They're the hardest ones to get money from.
Okay.
Because budgets at school districts are already tough. So now you're adding security. Then you're telling them that they need to pay for this. And it's not expensive, but it's not cheap. It's not free.
Right. You got to make a profit too.
It wasn't in their budget before. And all of a sudden it became a topic. And now they have to try to go find money mid-budget, mid-cycle. School districts are notorious for being old school, from technology they use to how they're managing it. So they're playing catch up, and there's no talking about shortage of resources. Like, schools have it the worst.
They're screwed.
And on top of that, education technology is probably one of the fastest growing industries. So you have like more tech, more data, and less resources and less money. So you kind of don't have a Venn diagram that's working out real well.
Yeah, it's all one pillar. You needed the other 5 kind of thing. So
yeah, so we'll see. They're getting smarter though.
yeah, well, they're kind of, their hands are forced. They have to.
Yeah.
So the reason I brought that up was with the education is I remember, God, I'm going to date myself, back in the 90s when I was in elementary school. Um, the district I went to was already underfunded and underappreciated. They had like computers from the 80s in the 90s. And it was just one of those, I even said, I'm like, I'm not that smart, but I can figure out how to get into this computer kind of thing. And I'm like, why can't we just buy a new one? There's like a Dell at like Best Buy for like $100 kind of thing.
Like, you paying the $100?
Well, no, it was just back then. It was like the equivalence to now, where it was like $1,000, but I didn't realize it's $100 kind of thing. Well, they had everything on paper, and it was one of those. I'm like, now with hindsight, I'm okay, that actually is kind of smart, especially with how data's going, to have a hard copy.
Yeah.
But then there's also the problem of it could be burned by accident too. Then where's your backup kind of thing? What if for you, like, do you think the old archaic writing stuff down kind of thing still has its place, or is we're truly moving online?
We're moving online. We're not. You can't. I don't think profit margins can support going backwards.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. Like we're in a world, you got to do more with less, and technology is the only way to do that. Looking at the legal industry, I don't know if you've ever hired a lawyer. They're not cheap.
No, they're not.
And so they're using technology to do things 50% faster, which is ultimately a cost saving to you. Like, you're not ready to go back and say, you know what, send me a notebook with that contract and I'll review it and then I'll send it, right? Like, we're not going that way. We just got to figure out how do we move forward, but do it without risk. And that's the $1 million question.
Yeah. So speaking of technology, the one I want to hear your thoughts on it, especially being with the third-party vendor, with all this AI integration, what are some risks you see?
Look, AI is awesome.
It is.
It's great. It's going to change the world. The biggest challenge I see with AI is that right now we're still, you said it earlier, data's gold. AI is only as good as the data that goes into it. If you take bad data to build an AI model, you're going to get bad outputs.
Mm-hmm.
And who's auditing that information? Who's auditing that data?
Right.
That's going into building the models. That's what's still difficult to understand. And the bad part for somebody who's buying this, it's just sitting in a black box that you're just taking the word and you're trying and you're testing and you're getting a better output, and you still have to spend a lot of time to review.
Mm-hmm.
And some products have truly been groundbreaking in terms of what they're able to deliver. I think my favorite one right now, in Gmail now, you can start typing a sentence and it's like predicting
Everything.
and it says, "Great weekend." It knows that it's Friday. Or if it's like, "Did you have a nice weekend?" It knows it's Monday, right? That's a great example where like AI has figured out like, okay, I know that most people are writing this on a weekend. Google has unlimited money.
Right.
Now, smaller companies, companies that are the next sort of frontier, still don't have great data sets that have been scrubbed, and they don't have the funding to kind of scrub them and make sure they're perfect. And so a couple wrongs could potentially really create a problem. And I think that, more data is better, and it's going to have a long-term impact on the positive side. But there's still a lot of skepticism you should have when you're looking at a product that's using AI to sort of to be their foundation. Is it is AI everything about their business, or is AI a part of their business that's helping them get better and you're ready to grow with them?
Right. Yeah. I was actually talking to a diversity something for the internet, and we were talking about AI, and that was the biggest one he said. He's like, there are actually companies right now using AI to hire people, scrub their resume, and pick a salary based off their data. I'm like, that's not a good idea. Depending on the data they have, it could be very biased and counter cultural intentions. Because of and he's like, good example. He's like, Amazon used 20 years worth of data, and he's like, I was using them, and they were paying men more, and they were not hiring women for 5 years. I'm like, oh shit, that's not good. And he's like, it was the data though. He's like, in the first 10 years, men were mainly hired because it was heavy packages. He's like, we didn't want to put the women to pick up 100-pound packages all day. He's like, they were trying to look out for the employees, but it was just one of those. He's like, with diversity, women are willing to do that. He's like, but the data said otherwise. And I'm like, oh,
yeah, that's crazy, right? And another thing, right? I've generally have joked. I said, if I have kids, I probably want them to go work at either the big four accounting firms, a big consulting firm, or one of the big banks. Because at the end of the day, right, in 10 years, that's going to be the norm. And you can never take a brand name off of a resume. So it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who worked at one of the big accounting firms is a better employee than somebody who worked at a tier 2. It may just have been a result that somebody who came out of, I went to Michigan State, I couldn't get into the JP Morgans of the world,
right,
because of this same thing. That doesn't necessarily mean I wasn't as smart as them. So let's not kid ourselves. But, I couldn't even get my foot in the door to show that I was a capable student, right? A 4.0 at Michigan State probably still would not have not gotten an interview over a 3.3 at one of the bigger brand schools. And, right, so you're using technology to self-select people out. But I think today's world, developers are crazy smart individuals. That school's not the best indicator of their skill set. And I think, frankly, is going to college really is going to college now, is that really something that we think is set somebody apart? To be, everybody has their own perspectives, and I don't know necessarily the end all be all anymore.
It's a good stepping stone to learn a broader aspect of the world. But during the heat of the lockdowns, I was like, oh, I want to get a higher paying job. I'm getting minimum wage. I started applying for banks because I know tellers get maybe $3 or $4 more than minimum wage. All of them were like, you need a BS in finance. I'm like, what the hell? Are you going to pay me $3 more? And I have to go $60K in debt just to make $3 extra an hour? I'm like, no, this is stupid. And they're like, sorry, that's our standards now. I'm like, wow,
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And one of my colleagues the other day was telling me he wants to go get his MBA. And he asked me if he should do it. And I said, I got my MBA, and I think you said it actually correctly. I said, it made me think and look at the world a little bit different and things about a little bit different. But he's been in our startup for 4 years. And then that night I found an article that says actually working at a startup is actually probably better than an MBA. And I think he's seen it all, the good, the bad, the ugly. He's been part of marketing. He's been part of sales. He's been part of operations. He's been part of the finance. He's been part of the legal. So he's probably gotten a better training in terms of what you would get at a school. But you lose the networking. You lose 3 letters behind your name.
Right.
Matter. And there's a little bit of formality that goes along with that. I do believe, and I said this before, working at a startup, it's chaos. And you learn a lot, but I don't know if you're necessarily learning transferable skills to another job. Like, right. I don't know if all the things that he learned in terms of reactionary learning are the right tools to go to, now maybe go into a larger company. They're definitely not going to be the case. Then you're going to maybe another startup, and I don't know if they're going to, if all things are equal. I don't know what the right answer is, right? To your point, do I tell him to go spend $50,000 a year and go in debt for $100,000 a year when he's getting married in June? Like, that's also not a good idea.
Right. Yeah. You're starting your marriage with a lot of debt. Not a good idea, my friend.
No.
Yeah. That was actually one of them. My martial arts instructor tells me this story, and he's like, because martial arts is essentially, how he says, it's like selling insurance or religion. He's like, there's no tangible object, but you got to make someone believe it. I'm like, okay. So for like 2 years, I worked with him, and he taught me all this stuff. And then his like ex came in, who has a master's in marketing, essentially sat him down and said, I've like whatever in debt and learned everything about marketing, but they never taught me anything you do, and you're better at marketing than I am. And that's where then he told me that story. He finished it off, and he's like, everything you're learning here is applicable to any arena. He's like, obviously, if you go into Fortune 500, you got to do more tactical data stuff. But he's like, concept's still the same. You want to get them when they're looking for this. And I'm like, oh, and it's just, that's where your comment with the startup. It's like the fact that he was in the trenches. And I've heard, and probably you could confirm this, in a startup, there's so much growth. You can move up the ladder very quickly too. If you do it right and you work for the guy correctly.
Yeah.
So that's where one guy told me, he's like, if you really want to be like an executive or a C-suite something, he's like, go for a startup, like from ground zero. More than likely they'll throw you in finance, or for your case, like the chief technology guy. And he's like, then because you got it, you got the 3-letter title without a college degree, you could just go turn around to a big company and be like, all right, I was this CFO here. Can I get as close to CFO? Like, you already got so-and-so in.
Yeah, no. And I think, working at a startup, I think the number one skill set you learn, especially if you're kind of like sitting at that level and you're trying to grow, you have to anticipate problems,
right?
Where at a larger company,
you react to them.
Problem, right? You're reacting because it's somebody else, right? Like there's somebody down the chain, and I think that's the number one skill set at a startup. And I tell the team all the time, like, if you see a problem, right, whether it's in the product or whether it's a client, don't give me the problem. Give me the problem and 2 to 3 ideas of how we fix the problem, right? Because they're the ones on the ground floor. They're the ones that are actually looking at it. And so one thing I've told them is figure out what can go wrong with each of these options. And then let's take the path of least resistance, right? Because, and that's, like, again, anticipating what can go wrong based off of every decision. And I don't think that a larger company, and I think going to school teaches you point in time. We're trying to think forward one step.
Yeah, you have to as a startup, because you're scrapping just to pay everyone. If you're not anticipating a problem, that could be another $10,000. You're like, shit, that's like payroll right there. I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Bad. The wrong decision have the ability to be really detrimental to the business.
And that was the thing he was telling me. He's like, if you can integrate with whatever startup, he's like, it's going to teach you things like you didn't even, because a few of my coworkers I have worked with before, they got a degree in business. And that's where I used to talk with them, but I realized they're talking like the 1980s kind of business. I'm like, well, they don't really do that anymore. And they're like, yeah, we got like whatever degree in business. And I'm like, I don't even have a college degree, and I know that's not happening. Is this what you were expected to do when you get in the workplace? They're like, yeah. everything we taught, we do. I'm like, you're going to get a harsh learning lesson. That's not how this stuff's done anymore.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, it's kind of fly by the seat of your pants world.
It really is. Just like you, take your time, go to the beach, just relax. Because when you do get a moment, you got to breathe.
Yeah, look, taking time off. I mean, if the pandemic's taught us one thing, mental health, sort of like just taking a breath, stepping away from it for a minute will make you, it makes you better. I definitely did not take that to heart before. Just figured keep grinding and you're going to keep, but that's not the case at all.
No. And so I'm just curious, I just as an onlooker, are you also integrating like some sort of system with your employees? Like, okay, like Lucy, I don't know if you have a Lucy, we'll just say it's Lucy. Like you look like you're struggling, your production going down. Do you need like a week or two just to, we kick back the load, give it to someone else kind of thing? Or are you actually like in the trenches, always talking to people and be like, oh yeah, so-and-so needs a break, give them the day off, rest of the day off kind of thing?
A little bit of both. There's no perfect answer. We run really lean, which has been good and bad.
Yeah.
We're we don't necessarily have the team or the ability to just like Nike shut off for a week. One day, hopefully I'm as big as Nike. I can tell people that I'm just taking a week off. But like we will try to find little things to sort of bridge the gap. Like we're Labor Day, Monday's Labor Day.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-day week. So we shut on Friday. So, all right, everybody take a 4-day weekend. We'll probably wrap up around 3:00 on Thursday. Go do whatever it is you do and enjoy the long weekend and come back on Tuesday refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely want to tell people to try to take a day off when they can. I will not say no to somebody if they would need to have a little bit of a break. So definitely during the pandemic, we're trying to force people because people couldn't go on vacation. It was like, I take a day off. Where do I go? I'm still sitting at my house and I'm staring at the computer.
You're same old.
Right. It's just nothing different. So try to get people out of their house.
Yeah. That was an interesting one for me. I like camping, as you can probably tell with the mess behind me.
Yeah.
And so that was the one thing I was just like, I need to take my vacation anyways. I'm like, apparently camping is not forbidden. So let's just go to the beach kind of thing. That was I wanted to go to the theaters. I'm like, oh, no, Corona, can't do that.
Can't do that. What part of California?
I'm near LA.
Okay. I lived in Santa Monica at one point in my life.
Nice.
Yeah. Miss it out there.
We're a special state. It's the kind you love us and you hate us at the same time.
I would never want to live there again. But pre-COVID, I would come out for basically a week every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So basically all in, I used to spend a month in California, mostly in the LA area. So very, very excited for that to be part of my life again. Don't know when that's going to be, but that's the hard part. I used to go to New York for a month, I'd go in California for a month, and then random trips here and there. Hopefully we'll get back there soon.
I think so. I think we're going to have to ride through this interesting year, but I think after that, it's like, we're going to finally crest and come back down.
Yeah. This winter is going to be tough, I think.
It is.
But we got to power through it.
It's one of those, I was joking with a lot of my coworkers and I said, oh, no one's like following the rules. They're going and meeting people for Thanksgiving. I'm like, there's going to be a huge case spike in December and then Christmas kind of thing. And then as I looked at the case charts from last year to this year, I'm like, oh my God, we're literally going to do it again. I'm like, it is perfectly on track. That like the chart is just saying that. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not even the vaccinated versus it's just vaccinated people are getting it. And it's going to hit, it's going to hit everybody. We've let our guard down for sure.
Yeah. And then there's also certain people are intentionally just not doing anything And yeah, it gets super political from this point on. So no, let's get to dodge that one.
Next topic.
Actually, how long do I got you for?
I got a couple more minutes. I got 2-3 more minutes.
Okay, then I'll just do 2 going out questions and then a link to send to everyone too.
Yeah.
So first one is, well, you kind of already said it. Other than work, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy during these lockdown times?
Summertime, trying to hit the pool as much as possible. That's my sort of, that's my sanctuary. And then getting back to cooking. That's actually been probably my but I'm not doing the bread. I used to cook. I haven't made a loaf of bread ever. But I got a Dutch oven for Christmas and got a couple more things and been having fun with that, making short ribs and
Nice.
Different types of sort of like meats and porks and that's been my thing. And then over the last 60 days, let's say last 60 days, I really got back into exercising. I've never been, I don't like running, but been eating good. Lost 12 pounds in the last 45 days.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. So, so those are, I'd say, right. But when you eat, you gotta do something. So,
right.
That's my weakness.
So then the other second question I like asking is, someone aspiring to be like you, a successful startup entrepreneur, have different events and family going on. What are some tips, tricks, or advice you'd recommend or give to them?
Find a balance, for sure. You're not going to get this time back. I'd say that's probably my number one mistake. And if I ever do this again, I definitely know how I want to do things differently. If anything we've learned in the last year and a half, things can flip on a dime. So take time for yourself. That's super important. I lost 12 pounds over the last 45 days. That's because I put it all back. I put it all on in the last, 4 years. So, and some, so take care of yourself. Especially if you're in your 20s, it's a lot easier to start and get in the habit of exercising in your 20s than in your 40s. It is really, really challenging to do it in your 40s. So find a balance, find consistency, and find a hobby that you like that's going to get you out of work. I love working. I have partners love working, and that's our sanctuary and that's our outlet. But then I find myself sort of never taking my mind off of it. And I think if I could do it over again, that's probably something I would do.
That's fantastic advice, actually. So where can everyone get you? They're like, we made it to the end, Josh. How do we contact them?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com. First letter is I, Girdhar. So Girdhar at LinkedIn. Name's Ishan Girdhar, or just go to priva.com, PRI Victor Alpha. Go to the contact us page and tell them you listened and say, I want to chat with Ishan. So it'll get routed to me. So love to chat. If you're starting a business, looking for some advice, mine might not be the right one, but happy to brainstorm and help in any way I can.
Awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate your time and your insights.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.